Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com. Welcome to Drinking Bros, kids. We got a late night interview, D'Anthony. Woo! Late night interview.
Yeah.
Late night interview. He's hot off of flights. Bedros Keuilian.
Thank you so much.
How do you like that intro?
Man, that was pretty fire.
I felt like it was.
It was.
I felt like it was. Not because we've been drinking all day, but mostly for the fire in my belly.
If you say the name like Bruce Buffer does, you can get away with not knowing how to pronounce it properly.
Right.
Which is what just happened, by the way. He wasn't
Bedros Keuilian!
He wasn't trying to fucking fire you up or anything. He just doesn't know how to say your name properly.
I actually was, because you are beef fries with Ray Cash Care.
I am.
Therefore, we have to fire you, because he's constantly on fire, that guy.
He is. He's a good
he
dude.
he gasses people up on
Yes.
a regular basis. Yeah.
He's the
That's all
number
he
one
does.
hype man that anyone can get.
Of all time.
No joke.
Of all time.
Yeah.
And you're his boss. You own him. You control him.
We're friends.
Wow.
And I am his boss. Yes.
Yes.
I write his check. He's fired.
God damn it. I love that.
He
I
did
love
say,
it.
He did say that you fire him on a regular basis.
I do, but that's because he threatens to sue me on a regular basis.
Over what, though?
Just over goofy shit, because
What?
we're in California and it's litigious heavy. So he's like, look at that. You looked at me the wrong way. That's sexual harassment. I'm suing you.
What are the chances, though, that Ray would be able to figure out how to even do that?
I don't think he would.
I mean, very
Zero.
minimal chances.
He brings punishment, and he knows how to lift heavy.
yeah.
Those are his two things that are the zone of genius.
Well, he's got pretty good hair, too, I guess.
He does.
Yeah.
It's a Navy SEAL.
Yeah,
thing,
that's
I've heard.
It's a
I don't know.
requirement, yeah.
What are your two things? What do you go with?
Bro, because I'm Armenian, I
Yeah.
can grow back hair like a motherfucker, and I sweat profusely.
Both are
Like, those are my zone of genius.
equally
Yeah.
attractive to women.
Yeah, yeah.
Across the board.
Armenian women find me irresistible.
Yeah, yeah.
They always do. But tell everybody, what do you do with Ray exactly?
Yeah, so what I do with Ray is we have this thing called the Project, the Modern Day Night Project, and it's a 75-hour men's personal development program that, unlike anything else, men who aren't going to go see a therapist, aren't going to do the deep work about whatever traumatic situation that happened to them when they were young, that's creating a limiting belief system in their life, that's creating addictions. Like, you show me a man with addiction, and I'll show you a man who has yet to overcome his trauma or process through it. So the project is, we took Ray's specialty, the Navy SEAL training known as BUDS, and he built hardcore training, and I built really the deep work, journaling and talking about what happened to you as a kid and what limiting beliefs it created, and whether you were molested or raped as a kid, or abusive parents, or sociopathic mom, or you name it, man. One dude who came to the project, he ran over a family of 4, killed them all while he was drunk and Drinking Bros podcast. And while listening to Drinking Bros, no, I'm kidding.
Exactly. Wouldn't shock us, by
Keep
the way.
your eyes on the road, guys. Come on now.
Wouldn't shock us.
But the point is, it's a really awesome self-development program where in 75 hours we help these men, for lack of a better term, unfuck themselves and start the healing process. Otherwise, they're going to end up in a divorce, lose their business, lose their family, self-sabotage to the point of massive self-destruction.
So let me ask you this. Were you in the military? How did you get hooked up with Ray?
Crazy ass story. So in 2012, I own this chain of franchises called Fit Body Bootcamp. I'm the founder and CEO. We have 600 locations worldwide. And
Oh, yeah. You're in fucking all of California.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we came from. That's where I came from.
Okay, yeah, we have several actually out here. And but anyway, all that said, I was a horrible leader as my franchise was growing in 2012 and 13. I was listening to Howard Stern, and Howard Stern's like, hey, everybody, you guys should read Howard Wasden's book, because he was a SEAL Team 6 sniper. I'm a big Stern fan, so I'm like, shoot, he's recommending a book. I'm going to read it.
Sure.
And I read it, and the book's talking about, self-discipline, and it's talking about just having a mission and a vision and not just going out and executing, because SEAL teams don't do that. And I'm like, shoot, the stuff he's talking about here actually would work in business. If I had a vision of where I want my franchise, if I had a mission, if I had a team that believed in it, and we were kind of executing in order, we might actually be able to grow this thing. Because I was headed towards self-destruction. My marriage was about to end. I was eating myself. My addiction was food. And on top of all that, as a kid, between the ages of 4 and 6, I was molested by 2 older boys in Armenia before we escaped communism and came to the United States. And so you had all that together in this pot, and I was like this crock pot that was going to explode, right? And so as I read Howard Waslin's book, great book, awesome stories, I learned that I could use strategies from these elite operators into my business. So that leads me to the next book and the next book and the next book. Before I know it, in the 3-year period, I read like 11 books from like Navy SEALs who wrote, and specifically the stories were great, but I wanted to adopt their behavior and mindset into my business. I went from a shitty leader who couldn't communicate, who was indecisive, and who was emotionally reckless, to having discipline, waking up earlier, not staying up till 2 in the morning, chowing down and feeling guilty the next day, etc. Dude, my business changed. My employees stopped quitting. I stopped firing the ones that wouldn't quit. And so then I started getting speaking gigs around 2015, 16, 17. And I start meeting some of these SEALs whose books I read. And for example, Lone Survivor.
Marcus
Luttrell.
Yep, buddy
when
of
he
ours.
was doing the Patriot Tour, I was like, man, I read his book and it helped me out during that period of time, during that 3-year period. Like, you know what? I went to the Patriot Tour. I liked it. It was awesome. We're going to sponsor it. So we sponsored it 1 year. And so that's kind of how I paid it forward to them, right? And then a SEAL comes out of the military, and my friend Dean Jackson refers him to me just to help him out with his business, because that's my zone of genius. And I help him out, and it's like, hey, that's how I'm helping out that industry. Y'all help me with the books y'all wrote. And anyway, 2018, I find myself on stage with keynoting an event in Miami, and the other keynote guy is Jason Redman, right?
Yep.
And Jason Redman's like, hey, I want you to meet this SEAL. His name is Ray. And Ray's just, as you know, intense, angry, right? And he's like, go to the bar with me. So I go to the bar with him. He's like, have you done a stuntman before? I'm like, I don't know what a stuntman is, buddy. Next thing you know, we're
Did
taking
he try to
shot.
like fucking reverse 69 you standing
Yeah.
up in the
Yeah.
goddamn bar?
Yeah,
Asshole.
That's how it always
Yeah.
works.
He dropped me on my head last year.
Yeah.
Well,
Bro, right.
2019.
2019, before COVID, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID.
Then,
yeah.
in which case you're okay.
I think
Yeah,
so,
you're
yeah.
fine. You're fine.
So I fell madly in love with him, and I'm like, hey, what do you do? He's like, well, now I'm working for a 3-letter agency. I go, look, I'm going to do this thing, and I need someone like you to be able to run it. You're a physical beast, and I need your intensity. It worked out well, the project. We did the first one in 2019, and so it's been 2 years now, 10 classes, 87 guys who graduated, 40% attrition rate, and we're changing men's lives. And Ray's our lead instructor. Then we've got a Marine who's just angry at the world as well, and he's a great instructor. He brings the thunder and the hell. And then we've got a dude who's just full-on shaman-like. He's a VP of my supplement company, a MMA fighter, but just breathing expert and blah, blah, blah. And I teach the entrepreneurism and help them do the deep dive on their emotions. And between us instructors, we somehow got the right formula to help these men who don't want to necessarily seek out a therapist.
Got it. And this is based on your own life experience where
Yeah.
you didn't want to seek out any help, where you were like, all right, great. I'm a dude. I can keep this internally.
Yeah.
And then I'll get over it eventually.
Yeah. All we do is either drink it away, porn it away, stripper it away, you gamble it away, eat it away, but we avoid and ignore whatever trauma that exists that's creating the limiting belief systems, and we push away family and wives and business and all that. Yet on the other side of our mouth, we're like, no, I want to be successful. I want to be a good man. Well, to do that, you got to heal. So I actually went through 16 months of therapy. That's a whole different story, because I had this massive anxiety attack, not because I wanted to heal from what happened to me as a kid. I had an anxiety attack that led me to taking Xanax. I'm like, hey, doc, I don't want to take Xanax. Like, it's killing my creativity. He's like, well, you got to go do talk therapy. I'm like, fuck that. Anxiety attacks keep coming. So ultimately I go do talk therapy. And within 4 sessions, this therapist is so good at what he does, he gets me to open up about what happened to me as a kid. And I had never talked about it to anyone. I just suppressed those feelings until the age of 38. And so after 16 months of working with him, I can be on a podcast or be on stage with Tony Robbins or whoever and just talk about what happened to me. And it's just a blip on the timeline of my life. It's not necessarily the identity of who I am, a broken dude who's unlovable and throwawayable, right?
Was that what you were worried about? Was that you were a broken dude and unlovable, and therefore you were like, hey, I don't deserve any of this fucking shit that I'm about to either receive or go through, or the people I'm about to meet, and that's how you kind of changed?
Yeah. Well, here's what happens. Exactly, because we live in this cycle, subconscious cycle. For me, it was shame, rage, confusion. And it took Kevin my therapist, Kevin Downing, to go, hey, it seems like you're dealing with shame. I'm like, fuck, that's it, shame. He goes, let me guess. You're embarrassed that happened to you. You don't want anybody to know. I'm like, fuck no, I don't want anybody to know. He goes, rage because no one protected you from that happening to you by those 2 older boys. I'm like, exactly. Because in Armenia, there's the babushkas, because there was under Soviet rule. Babushka means grandma. All these neighborhood moms and grandmas kind of look after all the kids. While they would slap me around if I ate food with dirty hands, no one was protecting me while I was being molested.
Right.
But it's because they never saw. But in the back of my mind, it's because I was just useless and throwawayable and so unlovable, and so that's why. So it was shame, rage, and the confusion. Like, did I do something to let that happen? Did I encourage these guys to let that happen? What the fuck? Am I gay?
Yeah.
Right? And so that led to me being a personal trainer in my 20s and fucking everyone that moved to prove to myself that I'm not gay. Which,
I'm a fucking man. I fuck and everything else.
Yeah.
And I
but
think
all of that is on a subconscious level,
yes,
bro.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. Until you're talking to Kevin, you're like, oh, fuck. I did all that.
And a lot of children who get molested have the same story, where it's like you're overcompensating for what happened to you as a child, and you're not talking about it. Therefore, you come out and do extra shit where you're just like, yeah, dude, I'm going to fuck 3 girls tonight. And that's,
Yeah, that's exactly it. And there's a great book out there called The Body Keeps the Score. An amazing doctor wrote it. And in it, he talks about how men who have been molested will get a whole bunch of tattoos and they'll use a whole bunch of steroids. And dude, I'm reading this, I'm like, motherfucker, that's me. He's literally describing me. I would drive into Tijuana, because I lived in San Diego. I'd drive into Tijuana, fill up my spare tire. I slip my spare tire right along the rim, fill up my spare tire with Cestanon and all this, like, injectable testosterone. I drive back across and fucking use it. And I was jacked and big and huge and angry. And all that was just building armor. I was building armor because no one's going to fucking molest me again. Well, yeah, no one's going to molest a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
But the child inside was all fucked up.
How old are you at this point?
When I was driving into Mexico and getting in my mid-20s.
Okay.
It was just testosterone, personal training, and banging women.
And then how long did it take you to get out of that? What age were you?
I got married at 28, late 20s. And while the banging women stopped, the testosterone continued, and the self-sabotage continued.
And do you have a conversation with your wife of like, hey, look, the things that I did tonight or any other day or whatever, it's not really me. Here's what happened. Or when was the major breakthrough when you were like, hey, this is what my life was. I hope you can fucking deal with it.
Well, till this day, she doesn't know how the women that I've banged, and she's probably unlikely.
Not that, right. But I mean, as far as being molested and everything else, like, so, we've all done fucked up shit.
Kevin, at around month number 7 of working together, so I'd see him every Monday at 6 p.m., at around month number 7, he's like, hey, man, you got to write a letter to that little kid inside you. And he gave me the first sentence. Hey, Bedros, between the ages of 4 and 6, you were molested by 2 older boys. But today you are, and it was all about like, hey, you're a great dad, you're a great husband, and you have the capability to create these businesses and donate to charities like Shriners, Children's Hospital, Toys for Tots, etc. And it was so fucking healing to write that letter. And I just like handed it to my wife, because now I was like, all right, I don't think she's going to be like, oh, that's gross, you got molested. She was just like, dude, I always wondered what was up with you. And really, all of a sudden, it all made sense.
I mean, think about any other time anybody reveals something they think is secret. Like somebody comes out as gay, and people are like, yeah, dude, we got it.
Yeah, we know.
Clay Aiken announced he was gay, and everyone's like, okay, dude.
We know you were gay, yeah.
Seriously. But it's not even just like sexuality stuff, anything.
We manufacture this massive story in our head.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That everyone else is like, oh, okay, dude, I still dig you. You're cool.
Yeah. It's goofy. It's like doesn't make any sense. But I guess it does as a self-defense mechanism. Some of the things do make sense. Like if you're put into a position where your weakness betrayed you in some way, becoming strong is a reasonable way to go about fucking fixing that situation, right? Mm-hmm. Becoming better at something, right, makes sense. But that's not typically what we do. What we do is we find a fix that only makes sense for us, right? Like there's no bubble around us. Like I need to figure out how I can reconcile myself with my past exposure and also include my family in that, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't do that. It's fight or flight, right? You collapse in on yourself, and everybody around you thinks you're angry and irritable for no reason all the time. But that's never true. There's always a reason.
Oh, yeah.
And the weirdest shit would trigger you, right? Like, it doesn't matter. People, when they hear me now talk about the fact that I was molested, and whether it happens most when I'm speaking at stage, because then there's a little meet and greet, and they're like, oh man, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I only was beaten, or I only was emotionally tormented by my mom, dad, whoever. I'm like, hey, let me tell you something for a moment. Like, the same part of your brain that lights up is the same part of my brain that lights up in a CAT scan. It's the fight or flight mechanism that Dan talked about. And so what happened to me is not any worse than what happened to you. The traumatic event still creates disassociation, number one. It still creates the self-sabotaging behavior. It still creates addictions that are there to avoid the actual trauma. And it still creates a gap where you keep everyone at arm's distance. No one can really feel that if they know you, they can connect with you, and they can really feel love from you. And so they're like, oh, shit. I'm like, so actually, go deal with your shit. Don't think mine's worse than yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can only imagine it had to have been a huge relief for you personally when your wife was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't care. Because I'm sure you were thinking about it for years and years and years at that point. And then once she said, hey, it's fine, I don't care, I figured something was wrong with you, that had to have been a massive weight off your shoulders.
Bro. Like, literally, people were telling me, hey, man, you look younger. Did you change your hairstyle? Did you do this? Like, whatever dark cloud loomed over me, just like, poof, went away. Like, friends that I hadn't seen for 4 or 5 years, like, dude, you look different. Did you lose weight? Did you do? I'm like, no, man, same dude.
Yeah.
But you can tell that darkness is gone because you're carrying this weight. It's a secret. No one can know because they won't be my friend.
There's half a dozen different physiological reasons why that would happen. The distribution of serotonin and melatonin in your blood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The addiction to dopamine because you don't have serotonin goes away. The cortisol levels, right? The stress hormone are way up, and it fucks your whole goddamn body.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what you do, it'll fuck your body.
No matter what you do. And I'm going through the cortisol shit now. And like, I can't imagine what you were under. After you told her and she was accepting of it, how did your life change after that?
You know what's nuts is about a week later, she's like, hey, something like that happened to me, and I don't want to, it's her story, so I don't want to, but she told me about an experience that happened to her that I hadn't known, and we were at this point married 11 years, right? That brought us closer together. And I shit you not, I get home from work, and my dog comes to me now. My kids would come running to me. This was now 8 years ago that I was able to talk about it.
Yeah.
And before that, I would get pissed off at her. I'm like, how come the kids aren't coming to me? How come the dog's fucking? How come I feel like everyone's walking on eggshells around me? Well, Kevin, and then of course I yell at her about that, and we get in a big fight. And then of course I tell Kevin the next week, I'm like, hey man, we got in this fight over this thing because no one fucking seems to.
Like, why the fuck would they want to be around you if you're a miserable cunt?
Right.
Yeah.
And goes, people, or go ahead, finish that.
Well, he was just saying, dude, you're walking around with all this armor on. He goes, let me tell you something. When you park your car in your garage, when you're walking across your pool deck, because he kind of had me describe the house, and I go, then I walk across the pool deck, come into the back. He goes, imagine like your chest plate falling off, your sword falling off, like your armor falling off, and you're not walking into your house like as a warrior because you're constantly defending yourself in the outside world because of fight or flight.
Yeah.
Instead, imagine like these are your biggest fans. And when I started to imagine that I just walk in like fully exposed, dude, the energy changed, and my kids and my dog would come running to me, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Well, this is a story, or not really a story, but an anecdote, I guess I tell about people in the workplace that are trying to climb the ladder. I've seen so many people in their spiral as they're getting fed up with not progressing in the ranks wherever they happen to be. And the tendency is to start doing less work and have a shittier attitude. So your goal is to get a promotion, and your activity towards that goal is to have a shitty attitude and do less work than you were before. Now, how the fuck do you ever think that's going to fucking make sense, right?
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, those dots don't connect.
No,
they don't connect at all.
But all this is, that's the point of all this shit that he does, that Ray does, that a lot of people are doing now, is that this isn't fucking rocket surgery, man. There are very basic things that are happening to you psychologically and physiologically that you have the power to change right now. Like literally, you can. That we used to think. I've talked about this on the show before. The science used to be that the mind controlled the body. That is not true. In some ways, that is true, right? But there is dozens of different research papers that show when you're upset, the act of forcing yourself to smile will make you happier, right? Because it produces endorphins in your body. Like your body, your brain chemistry responds to even your posture. That's why Jordan Peterson talks about stand up straight with your shoulders back. Yeah. It's not about having literal good posture, but it kind of is, right? Because standing up straight with your shoulders back makes you feel more confident. Like that Superman pose bullshit from back in the day. Now, it doesn't do all the stuff they said it did, but it does have a physiological effect on you.
Yeah, well, it's a good starting point.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great starting point, and you can at least build from there. And for you personally, you were building from that place. Where do you go next after that? Because I would imagine after freeing that much weight off your shoulders, you're like, all right, great, fuck. There's this one idea, there's one thing that I want to do, and then I'm going to go from here and do it. Because when you feel safe and secure at home with your wife and your kids and everything else, it allows you to do so much more in real life. Yeah. What did you do after that?
Bro, you're going to be blown away. I guess I could chalk it up to coincidence, but it's no surprise that 2013, I started working with Kevin, my therapist. By 2015, we hit the Inc. 5000 list. By 2016, we hit the Inc. 500. The next year, we hit the Inc. 500 again. Then Entrepreneur Magazine's 200 fastest growing franchise out of 175,000 franchise brands, right? And so my business starts skyrocketing. I finally am able to get rid of the 25 pounds or so that I was holding on. And as a guy who owns a fitness franchise, and you're using social media to promote it, and I'm taking selfies from the chin up because I'm embarrassed to show my body, all of a sudden I can, the binge eating stops at night because I would resort to food as my dopamine hit, right? We're all chasing some kind of dopamine, whether it's porn, alcohol, whatever.
Oh, yeah. Look, Dan and I talk about that all the time on this show. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden I lose the weight, so I become more congruent. I became more congruent in my life, and I suppose that's what people saw in me. I began to live what I preached instead of white knuckling through life. I felt like I was white knuckling through life. Like, you got to be successful at life. You got to have a great marriage. You got to stay together, But it's like I was white knuckling to do all that. Now I felt like you're on that bike and, like a gyroscope, the motorcycle sprockets and the fucking wheels, everything's going the same way so you can let go of your handlebars. And it's like, fuck, the motorcycle's going straight. Yeah. That's how my life feels right now. And I'm just freaking blessed for it. But I work towards it every day. Like every day I act like I could lose it if I resort back to my old behavior. Yeah.
And how many years has that been?
8 years now.
And after 8 years?
Yeah. Now it's become autopilot. Yeah. And again, 2 years ago. And what's funny is the biggest change was I ended up writing this book called Man Up, right? And it's not about being a macho man or whatever. But that led me, you want to talk about like having, giving yourself self-esteem. I started my franchise with a business partner. Good dude, man. Guy made me laugh like no one else could. Like I would literally spit out coffee when he would start talking. He was just so funny, but a horrible business partner. But I would hear his Corvette driving up in the mornings to the office. My body would go into a physiological response. Like I now realize it was fight or flight. It was stress response, right? It was like pre-indicators of my first panic attack. And I'm not going to mention his name because he's a solid human being. Just we didn't jive.
Sure.
And so after working with Kevin, I'm like, hey man, you and I got to fucking divorce. Either you take Fit Body Bootcamp or I'm going to take it, but we got to divorce because we're family friends and this can't work. Like it was that easy. But for me to have that conversation, I was like, all right, Bedros, man up and do that, right? And it was like, man up and stop eating in the middle of the night. I would come downstairs, break bagels in half, dip them in cream cheese and eat them. Now it's just the dots that I do that with, but it's because it's on cheat days, on Wednesday nights. Yeah. But anyway, all that to say that everything was like, all right, man up and make this decision. Man up and tell Kevin about what he's asking. Because for a couple sessions, he was like, hey, is there anything deeper going on with you as a kid? I was like, nope, everything's great. The anxiety attack was work stress, right?
Yeah. It's interesting that that's the way it works because as an entrepreneur, you know that in marketing, in particular digital marketing, you're looking at 3 to 5 impressions before someone makes a conversion, right? So I always look at those parallel. I mean, I came from the intelligence community into Black Rifle, right? So I'd never done marketing before, and I just came in and did it because that's exactly what the fuck it is. It's just understanding how human behavior works. And if you're out there and you can learn those lessons and apply them to yourself, I mean, fuck around a little bit.
Bingo.
Like test stuff, see what works for you, because it's not going to be the same for you that it is for everybody else. Your diet's not going to be the same. What workouts work for you and make you feel good, your hormone levels, whatever they have to be, just because if you're a military person out there and the VA is telling you that as a 28-year-old dude, a 280 to 350 level for testosterone is okay for you. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Right? Just because that falls within the normal range goes all the way up to an 82-year-old male. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So not everything works for everybody. Test some of this stuff. You know what I mean? It's good for you. Anyways, your body and brain like to be surprised sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and with your business partner, when I hear he drove up in a Ferrari or a Corvette,
yeah.
that makes me cringe automatically.
Yeah,
I'm
he,
like,
he was
man,
a bit showy. Yeah.
any business partner who shows up in that and it's like you haven't sold already, like, God damn it,
Unless
man,
it's like
I
a really
can't-
old one, that would be cool.
I
No,
guess
it was like a modern,
Yeah. But when you look at a car like that, it projects something immediately,
Yes.
business-wise, in you where you're like, fuck, man, why are you spending this much goddamn money on this when our business should be doing X with this money?
Bingo.
And it's miserable.
Back then, actually, even now, I drive a newer Toyota Tundra now. I mean, I have some nice cars, but the majority of the
But that's a
time,
$58,000 car.
Yeah.
A Corvette is,
Yeah,
you know.
he bought the Grand Sport. I think at the time it was like $70,000. When a lot of that money could have gone towards the growth.
I like how you remember it's the Grand Sport.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I remember, but it was the Grand Sport. Yeah. Yeah. But you know what's funny is that allowed me to write a book called Man Up. And in the book, I talk about how I started doing these physical challenges. I would train for 6 weeks, run a marathon, having never run a marathon before. And then I was like, man, I've gotten in a lot of fights in my time, but everyone's, jiu-jitsu's the thing. And I don't know if I'm ever good at grappling. I've never been at grappling situations. So, all right, I'm going to hire a jiu-jitsu instructor and train 6 weeks straight, 4 times a week, and hit the mats with him. And same with an MMA fighter. I hired Aaron Weatherspoon, and he was at the time King of the Cage welterweight champion, trained for 6 weeks, got in the ring with him. He whooped my ass. But surfing lessons, rock climbing, everything that spooked me out and freaked me out, that it was like out of my comfort zone, I kept doing. And so as I wrote that down in the book, that all men should challenge themselves and just kind of seek out adventure, these guys are reaching out to me as my book took off in 2018 and 19, and they're like, dude, you should put together some kind of challenge for us. I'm like, just go do your own 6-week challenge.
Yeah.
But when enough of them reach out to you, I'm like, all right, I will do it if they're willing to also do the deep work. So that's how the project came to be. The Modern Day Night Project is, I got Ray the SEAL, I got Steve the Marine, and I've got Aaron the MMA fighter, and me, and a SWAT guy who teaches gun tactics. So we beat the hell out of them for 75 hours straight while doing a lot of teaching on faith, family, fitness, and finance, which I'm sure Ray's talked about. Those are our core four pillars. And if you dial in your faith, family, fitness, and finance, you get the fifth thing that all men are looking for, which is fulfillment.
Oh, I was gonna say fuck.
Fuck.
You get to fuck when you get those other
You get
things,
to
right?
fuck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure I got it right.
With that, what was your time in the marathon? Just out of curiosity, like, did you keep track of all this shit of like, all right, great. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, and then here's my time.
You know what
and
my
here's
goal
everything
was?
else.
Only because, imagine this. So, I'm 230 pounds now. Back then, I was 245 pounds when I ran it. And my only goal was, have you guys run a marathon before?
No, but so the reason I asked, my wife wants to do it, and she's convinced, like, hey, if I just train for like 6 weeks, she can do it, and she probably could. She's a great runner who can just pick it up, but she would be sore for 3 weeks afterwards. What was your experience?
Mine was similar, and I did hire a running coach, Jill Brewer, runwithjill.com. Shout out to her; she's a badass. But my only goal was to run a marathon, because at 5 hours they shut off because you can't shut down a whole city.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So 5 hours they shut down the route and funnel people towards the finish line. So all of a sudden you didn't do 26.2 miles anymore. You might have done 21 miles. I was like, fuck that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah. So it's the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon. Started at 6 a.m. My only goal was to finish it under 5 hours, and I did 4 hours and 47 minutes.
Holy shit!
What'd you do with the other 13?
Celebrated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ate a
Drink
banana.
water. Yeah.
Ate a banana. Dude, my toenails fell off.
Yeah.
Like, I swear, my 3 weeks, I don't know, but 3 months, my bones hurt, or my bone marrow. Something deep in my legs hurt for months.
So I've heard about the toenails.
Well, that's micro tears. Probably. What do you call it? Stress fractures in your legs.
Yeah, but I've heard about the toenails. What causes that? Because
I
that's
think
what
your feet swell up, right?
Pressure, yeah.
That's what she was worried about. She was like, "Hey, dude, if I do this, it's gonna lose like 4 toenails, and I don't know when they're gonna grow back." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Yeah." And I go, "Is it based on a city?" And she
You
goes,
don't even really
"No,
need
it's any
toenails.
marathon.
You don't need toenails anymore. They are completely useless.
You don't.
We wear shoes,
Yes.
motherfucker. We're walking around barefoot out in the jungle anymore.
But
they were there to protect, like toenails were there to protect our feet?
yeah.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
What else would they be there
yeah.
for? Well, I guess no, that's not entirely true because they used a claw too, right?
Oh yeah,
Maybe, but apes don't use their bottom feet to claw.
yeah. I mean,
Like a koala, you can climb a tree or something.
Yeah, maybe climbing. I don't know.
I don't know.
Let's call God. Hold
It
on.
is. Here's the thing. It's creepy.
Nope.
It's really fucking
What,
creepy
not
when
having
people.
toenails?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if you look at it, like most marathon runners, they'll paint over where the nail should be, and you're just like, oh, that's not a thing. You're definitely missing all your toenails. Like you're disgusting.
Yeah. It is pretty gnarly. So actually recently, a few months ago, I decided that I'm going to hike Chino Hills, and hence hills. There's a lot of hills in Chino Hills.
Yeah.
I'm going to hike from sundown to sunup with zero training. I just woke up one morning and I'm like, tonight, instead of sleeping, I'm going to hike from sundown to sunup. So I ended up over 12 hours. We did 37 miles because I was able to recruit 5 people from my work from HQ to do it with me. And sure enough, my pinky toenail fell off a month later.
Oh Jesus.
But, whatever, it grows back.
Does it?
Yeah.
Does it? Is it the same?
Yeah, like I could take off my shoes and show you.
No, let's skip
It's
it.
fine.
There's
It's
enough
fine.
people from your organization removing clothes on this show.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
can't top Ray.
No.
I can't
Yeah.
top Ray. Yeah.
I want to brag on you a little bit. Who are the celebrities that have used your books or your programs? Because I'm looking at the list here, like Andy Frisella,
Yeah, yeah.
massive.
And he was kind enough to give me a blurb for my book on the back of my book. So Andy Frisella, Ed Milet was
Yeah,
I was
you work with that too, right?
Andy doesn't do shit without like if it's unless it's a real homie, like Andy doesn't do shit.
He doesn't even sponsor. Like he does the sponsored athlete thing, but he doesn't pay for advertising.
Ever.
Ever.
So what was the relationship with him?
you know, we just hit it off. So he wrote a book called Otis and Charlie Play to Win, right? It's like a children's book. And when I saw that book, and I'm a big fan of MF CEO podcast when he had that going before the current one. And when I heard about the book, I'm like, well, shoot. I asked my wife, I'm like, hey, how many kids go to Andrew and Chloe's private school? She goes, 253. I went and bought 253 copies of Otis and Charlie Play to Win. Booked it by Andy Frisella that teaches kids how to be competitive and not just be losers.
Pussies.
Pussies.
Right.
Yeah.
You can say
Right.
pussies. It's fine.
Yeah. And we stacked them up at my HQ, and I stood in front of the books with our Fit Body Bootcamp light up sign behind me, and I had my photographer guy take a picture, and I just put it right before we donated. I put it on Instagram, and I was tagged Andy, and I was like, shout out to Andy for writing a book, because now I'm going to donate 253 copies to my kid's school, and we're going to raise some badass kids in this community. And he DM'd me. He's like, bro, who are you, and why are you doing this? I was like, you wrote an awesome book. I read it, and I gave it to my kids, and they're like, hey, Dad, you should get one for every kid.
Yeah.
So from there, he's like, you got to come on my podcast. I'm like, well, man, if I have a chance to get on your podcast, I'd rather do it next year when my book comes out. He goes, fuck it, get on my podcast now, get on it again when your book comes out. And he just became like such a good friend, him and Ed Milet and Lewis House, and I've just been blessed. And I ended up paying it forward to them by helping them start the RTA Syndicate Mastermind. I've been doing masterminds. I've got 3 masterminds for years. And so when Ed and Andy decided to do that mastermind, they were like, hey, man, like, show us how. And so Ed came to my office, and Andy was on the phone, and we marker boarded the whole thing out, and RTA came to be. And I'm like this fucking Cinderella man. You know, I don't know, man. I think people just fucking, for whatever reason, want to help me, and I appreciate them for that, and I do my best to pay it forward and help them out as well. I don't know why people do that for me, and I'm just grateful for it.
Can I say something weird to you here?
Sure.
We're recording late at night, and this is going up next week. It still kind of feels like you don't feel like you
Imposter
personally
syndrome
deserve it.
is
Yeah.
the phrase you're looking for.
The what?
Imposter syndrome.
Imposters. It still kind of feels like you don't feel like you deserve it, which is weird because you've accomplished so much in this life.
I'm not sure that's even a good out. Like, why would you deserve anything?
Yeah.
You
I don't
deserve
know
what you fucking work for.
Yeah,
bro.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like all the work you've done and all the people you've helped. Do you feel like you've deserved it?
I think the point, though, isn't about deserve. It's about anybody can do this shit, right?
If you earn it every day, and going back to those, got to give a shout out to the SEALs. Everyone's like, how do you have all these SEALs around you? I'm like, It's so weird. They came and found me, and literally, like, it was like the universe putting them in front of me saying, now you got to help them because their books helped you, right? And, you know, they talk about earning the trident every day. Now, I don't know anything about the military. I wasn't in the military. I went in 94 when I graduated high school. Mrs. Boyer said, she slammed me against the wall, my home ec teacher, and said, you got to go into the military. They're the only ones who can set you straight. What you didn't see was a fire extinguisher behind me. She just kept hitting my head against that. So I graduate high school, and I go to the Marine Corps recruiting station with my friend Dave Sanborn. Dave is like 5'4" by 5'4", strong as shit, but overweight because they use the BMI, right?
Nonsense.
So they're like, all right, dude, we'll give you B12 shots, and he lost the weight, and they're, you know, to take him. They're like, hey, you've got flat. I'm like, flat feet like a fucking platypus, and you got flat feet, and we can't take you. I'm like, but Mrs. Boyer said, like, well, we can't take you. I'm like, well, what the fuck?
The Marine Corps doesn't take anybody. Like they don't fuck around. Even during that period.
I imagine now they do, though, because they're orthotics or maybe.
Yeah, to some degree. If it's a correctable thing, yeah. But even if it's something that's not easily correctable, then you're kind of fucked on that. Because they're the one branch of the military that never has problems meeting their recruiting goals. Because everybody wants to be.
Everybody wants to be a Marine, yeah. And what Dan was talking about with imposter syndrome, is there any part of that is still in you, and you talk to your wife about it, where you're like, hey man, I can't believe all this amazing shit is happening to me, and I'm around all these amazing people every single day? Because let's face it, you're their boss. Like, you're the leader of this. Like, that's got to be weird after what you described earlier in the show as your childhood and upbringing.
Bro, you know I'm supposed to be in Armenia right now being a taxi driver, right? Like, my dad risked his life, and we escaped, and we came here when I was 6 years old. And we actually escaped into Italy, and from there filled out the paperwork to legally enter the United States at the American Embassy, because he was a member of the Communist Party, and so we defected. But when I think about where I've come to, yeah, okay, you know how the show was supposed to happen yesterday? Or sorry, tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And when Joe and my assistant's like, hey, it's actually going to happen tonight, in my head I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm going to make these guys wait for me. You know, I almost texted Joe and said, hey, I'll just go and hang out at headquarters, because Aubrey's a friend of mine, and maybe hang out with whoever, JPCers or whatever, catch a workout with them. I'll just enjoy Austin and come. I was going to literally cancel because I didn't want you guys to go out of your way. So you might have a point there. It's not so much as an imposter. I just don't want to inconvenience people. I've had so much good luck in my life that, like, I don't know, man. I don't know I got to go see Kevin again. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
I don't think it's imposter syndrome.
No, you should always be cynical about your own status, right? Because you only get what you fucking earn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in a true meritocracy, it's just, I don't know. I don't like inconveniencing people like that either.
Me neither.
On the road, if I'm driving and I'm going to miss my turn because I can't get over something, I'm not fucking stopping and waiting to get over. I'm going somewhere else, turning around and coming back. I'm not gonna fucking fuck all these people up behind me just because I forgot to get over in the other lane. It's not gonna happen. That'll never happen.
That's exactly it for me. And so I was just going to be like, look, obviously these guys have whatever. Something came up, and you guys have something to do, and we'll do this podcast another time. And so y'all don't need to wait. But the other part of me is like, well, what would you tell a coaching client? Fucking find a way. Tell them to wait. Da-da-da. It's like, well, and you guys were more than willing to. It's not like you weren't. But I don't know. Maybe something inside me, not so much that I'm not deserving. I just don't like inconveniencing people because I've already achieved so much, and I'm so happy about it.
Well, here's the thing. That's the reason I ask personally is when people do achieve so much, everybody else expects them to be busy, or their time is valuable and everything else, and then you're like, okay, well, I can't bother that guy. He's too busy. He's too important and everything else. It has already happened to you, and you don't seem like that guy still, where you've got 600 fucking gyms and everything else, and it doesn't seem like you're still too busy to be like, hey guys, go through my assistant for this. Like, I've got other things to do.
Yeah, I mean, if someone reaches out to me, I'm going to help them. My dad would backhand me literally because he's 87 years old and he's strong like bull.
But you realize how extremely rare that is in this life, right? Because all the people you meet with along the way, fucking Tony Robbins, even Tony Robbins, he's just like, hey bro, I'm busy. Go through my assistant and everything else.
Sure.
You're not like that yet. Is there a point in your life where you're like, all right, great.
I hope I don't ever get there.
But you don't know.
I think people like that are douchebags.
Same
honestly.
here. But you don't know, and that's the thing, because when so many people are depending on you or your advice or your opinion, where they're like, oh my God, I'm waiting for Bedros to say something. What's your response to that?
I still giggle. Like when someone's like, hey, I follow you at the airport or at the gym, I follow you, I read your book, I did, and they get like, they freeze. Here's how I like to, instead of inconvenience, how I like to make it convenient. My wife, I'm telling my wife this, that then people feel weird and they don't know what to say and they're just standing there. So she goes, come up with 3 questions. And so the 3 questions are, how did you hear about me? What do you do right now? And what is it that you want to impact the world with? And now I gave them 3 questions to have this conversation with me. And then I go, hey, do you want to take a picture? And they go, yeah. I go, hand me your phone. And I take a selfie and hand it to them. But like, my wife coaches me through. So I don't think I'll ever be a douchebag, because my wife will set me straight and my dad will backhand me. I don't know. I've been successful for almost a decade now. So I don't know. I guess if I get into the billions, I doubt that I will be, because I couldn't. I couldn't respect myself if I did that.
But is there any part of you that has a number in your mind that's like, all right, great. If somebody offers X, I'm out of here and I'm good to go, and I'll never be on social media and everything else forever?
No, I know I'm supposed to serve. The moment I stop serving, you guys will read somewhere that I killed myself. For real. Like, I will go back into being self-destructive. The guy, I forget, Bill something, founded AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. The way it happened.
Bill Brasky.
Yeah.
Yes. He was trying to stop drinking because he kept losing job after job after job, and he kept starting up drinking again. So finally he gives up. He goes, I guess I'm a fucking loser. I'm supposed to just be a drunk my whole life and lose jobs, but at least I'll go help winos in the street and homeless people not drink. 16 weeks in to helping them, the wife's like, hey, dummy, have you noticed that you haven't drank either for like the last 16 weeks? And he's like, holy fuck. And that's why there's a sponsor in AA. It's not to help the new guy. It's to keep the sponsor in line. And so when I do the project, when I donate to Shriners Children's Hospital, Toys for Tots, every Christmas we buy $250,000 worth of toys from Target in Chino Hills and donate it to the local Toys for Tots. And then we have 97 kids adopted through Compassion International. Like, it's not lost on me that those are 3 kid-based charities, and I'm trying to heal the little child inside me. It's not lost on me that I help all these men because I'm trying to help myself. It's not lost on me that when I lived in Section 8 housing in Santa Ana and the black gangs and the fucking Mexican gangs beat me up, that now all I want to do is create wealth and help people around me create wealth so that no one has to live in poverty and be fucking the foreigner kid who doesn't speak English and beat up and picked on. Like, none of that is lost on me. So I have to serve. If I don't, I will go back to being self-destructive, and I know that about me now. So quite honestly, Princeton Capital out of New York is purchasing a large portion of Fit Body Bootcamp right now for an obscene amount of money. And I'm really grateful for them, because in 2019 they started courting us. All through 2020 we lost 200 locations. They were
COVID, right?
Yeah, because of COVID.
Yeah.
Who the fuck wants to own a gym? Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're looking at a property now. There's an empty CrossFit gym on it for that exact reason.
There you go.
Yeah.
And Princeton Capital was next to us. They're like, hey, we know you're going to bounce back. We know you're going to be fine, and we're going to still entertain buying you out. And so I haven't once thought about, like, what private jet am I getting, whatever. In fact, Ed Milet reached out to me. I hope Ed doesn't mind me sharing this. We were in Hawaii with the family, and he texts me, he goes, hey, Bedros, I'm selling my jet. I'm going from a 1-engine jet to a 2-engine jet. And I thought of you, brother. You know, he talks like Macho Man Randy Savage. I thought of you, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I'm like, and my wife's in the car. The kids are in the back. We're in Maui. We go there every Christmas because my family's fucking nuts. And so we don't want to spend Christmas with them. That's a whole therapy session there, too. I'm like, Ed, I got him on speakerphone. I'm like, Ed, you know I spent $3 million building out a private gym for me and my family. I would not buy a private jet because I want to travel less, not more. He's like, that's why I love you, brother, and hung up, and he sold the jet to someone else. So I know what I want in life. I know what I don't want in life these days, and I know that if I stop serving, no matter how many millions or billions I get, I will just self-destruct. So I got to keep doing this.
And look, Ray Cash Cares is depending upon it too. So
yeah, plus he needs a paycheck from me.
You got to be there.
Fucking high maintenance. He's so high maintenance.
You got to be there for Ray, obviously.
I love that guy. I love that guy.
Yeah, because look, I have a similar experience, by the way, military-wise. where did a movie Range 15, and I got to work with members of the military, and I was like, oh shit, everybody just works harder than everybody else, like in normal gen pop, where you're like, all right, why would I go back to working with anyone else?
I don't think it's
this?
necessarily even some extraordinary work ethic. I think the reason that military people appear to work harder, I mean, one, being conditioned to work until the job is done is certainly a factor, but I think it is having a clear beginning, middle, and end. Mm-hmm. People don't want to fucking walk on a trail and forever.
Yeah.
People want to know where they are right now.
Yeah.
Where they're going and why they're fucking going there. And if you understand all of those things, all of this other stuff starts to fall into place. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like having a target at that point. And I think that's what military people are used to, seeing a problem and dissecting it into that. This has to happen. This is our current state. This is our desired end state. How do I get from A to B, right?
Yeah, and the beauty of it is, it's at a young age. So like, most people enter the military at 18 years old. So therefore, you're learning exactly what you said at 18 years old, whereas everybody else is learning that later in life.
People don't learn that until their mid-30s.
Yes.
In most cases. Right?
And fuck, man, and Los Angeles and Hollywood and all that other shit, it's just like, my God, man. Yeah. I know you've been coddled throughout this entire thing. We got this job to do. It's 15 hours a day and everything else. You can't teach it. You can't. You have to either experience it, or somebody throws you out into the wild and they're like, all right, congratulations, we're out of money, and that's it. Yeah. And I think that's the difference.
You're right. And the military does have that, because I think it's an ethos that's instilled in you guys, right?
I mean, it's an expectation, and the expectation has consequences, right? Mm-hmm. Either, obviously getting in trouble and stuff, but the consequences that you face on a daily basis are the death of yourself or your teammates. Yeah. You know what I mean? So there are legit consequences there. And I think learning under that stressful environment, it's iron sharpens iron. I hate to use that cliched phrase, but that is literally what it is. You put something under enough pressure, and if it is a quality material, it will become something better. That's how that works, right? And all of physics. Yeah. If you put matter under enough pressure, the supernova happens and all the heavy elements get created. That's how everything down to the very fucking physical level in this universe works. So why would it not also work on you and your character and your personality? Yeah. Obviously, that's how it works.
Or your business. Because let's face it, going through everything you're going through, and we know what that route is, right? Yeah. As far as
you guys know that.
Dealing with Series A and capital investors and everything else, to an acquisition of a company, it's fucking brutal, dude. Yeah. And they're ruthless. You don't have a choice to become ruthless and then become a shark and be like, all right, great. You talk to your lawyers and everything else. With you personally, let's say it does happen, right? Yeah. Let's say you do get bought out all the way around. Do you have other hopes and dreams beyond that, where you're like, all right, great, I'm fine with leaving this business because I want to go into X afterwards?
Yeah, so Fit Body Bootcamp, truth be told, the last 2 years has been run by my team. I'm just the face of it. I don't do any day-to-day work in it. And I'm really grateful for an amazing team, and the CEO of my company, Bryce Henson, who was my VP up until about 2 months ago at our World Conference. We promoted him to CEO, and I kind of stepped back fully. So I've got a supplement company called Truline, which we've been building the last 2 years. And I just wanted to create a good supplement that my daughter could have, my son could have, my wife could have, my mom could have, without any sweeteners and bullshit, GMO and hormones and all that stuff. But the project is the love of my life, the Modern Day Night Project, helping men. And through that, and we've had 9 classes of that. The 10th class for the project is in August. Because of that, these men were like, fuck, man, I wish there was something like this for my kids. And so we created something called the Squire Program. Mm-hmm. And the Squire Program is about taking young boys between the ages of 12 and 15 and putting them through a rite of passage. In all cultures, there's always been a rite of passage where a boy is pulled from his mom and given a seat at the table, where the men in that tribe or that community or that culture, depending on whether it's the Aborigines or the Peruvians or whoever, the Romans, even Spartan, right? Like, you're supposed to carry that shield. If you can carry that shield, then you can go to the Agape Training Center and become a man. And so young boys were made to carry that, whatever it was, a 50, 60-pound shield. Once they could, then they could enter. So there's always a rite of passage. In fact, knights have a squire to teach them how to become a man. So we created the Squire Program, and I'm like, holy fuck, I thought the project was amazing and magical. If we do the Squire Program right, we will literally work our way out of a job 2 decades from now in terms of the project. We'll be raising healthy young men who are protectors, providers, and are prepared to step in the gap. If we do our job right, we'll raise capable and confident men who have no illusion or delusion about their identity and the expectations of what a man is. So, you know, again, I reached out to Tim Kennedy and the guys in my circle that who've been so good to me, Andy Frisella, and I'm like, hey, the Squire program. He's like, yeah, man, I've been watching that. We got to do one here. We got to do a pop-up here in St. Louis. We got to Sean Whalen. And he's like, we got to do one out here in Utah. And Ryan Mickler, he's like, well, you know, he and his son, in fact, Ryan Mickler, Order of Man podcast, they went through it last week.
Yeah, he was a son of
He was on the show a couple months ago, yeah.
Yeah, and so he and his son went through it 2 weeks ago, actually, is when we did our third class. And so, again, I realized, what am I doing? I'm just healing myself, right? But in the process, I get to help young men and their dads go through an experience where now we hand the dads kind of a playbook. How fucking crazy is it that there's no owner's manual on how to raise yourself or how to go through a marriage, hence the 70% divorce rate, how to raise a son or a daughter. And so those of us who have some idea now, because we've tried and have figured something out, I was like, all right, I'm going to write a little booklet on it. And so that became the Squire program, and it's a 15-hour experience for fathers and sons. We put 80 of them together, 40 sons, 40 dads. And when there's no dad in the life and a mom reaches out to me and says, hey, there's no dad, there's no older brother, I go, great, I'm going to have one of my friends from the special operations community step in. And I reached out to one, and they always jump in. And again, like, how fucking awesome is that? And so the universe continues to conspire with me, not only to help heal me, but to also do good for this world. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also important that you realize it yourself, right? Because relationships are hard. Marriage is hard. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize it or don't have the patience for it or whatever it is. We're just like, all right, Jesus Christ, man. You know, if you want a successful long-term marriage, and it seems like you're in one, it is work.
It is work.
Yes.
It is work.
It is not just rainbows and fun, and you'll be jumping out of cars and arguing and all that other shit along the way, and you have to be prepared for that. However, I think a lot of people aren't, and they'll take the easy way out and be like, all right, great, so I'm going to get divorced and fuck off. But it affects the kids as well.
Yes.
I'm really tickled by that phrase, the easy way out, because it's never the easy way out. The easy way out is to sit around and eat bullshit food all the time and feel sorry for yourself in your mom's fucking basement, right? That's the easy way out, right? But that way takes you to heart disease and depression.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what's easy about that. Those are two things that are it's two of the most common causes of death that exists, right? I mean, heart disease is probably going to be number one again this year.
But at the time, as you're going through it, you really don't think about it. I'm sure you were the same way.
That's our problem, though. We think on these short-ass timelines,
Yes.
and it doesn't make any sense. Like, one of the reasons that cognitive behavioral therapy works, exposure therapy, whatever you want to call it, is because it exposes you to that traumatic event over and over again in a truncated timeline, and then it feels like it happened 30,000 years ago and to someone else maybe even, right? Depending on how successful it is. Yeah. So being able to be dispassionate about things like that is not something that most people are capable of doing. But when you go through that process and you distance yourself from it, whether it's through exposure, actual time helps sometimes, but not if you're reliving the trauma all the time, right? That's the problem. People are like, oh, all pain heals with time. Not if the wound doesn't close.
Exactly.
Asshole. Yeah. You know what I mean? So.
And you know what you just nailed about that is that we think that time will heal all wounds, but it doesn't. All it does is it puts filters on our eyes and ears, and we see the world in a twisted way where the wife might be like, hey, how was your day? And you're like, why you got to fucking ask that way?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, some people are comfortable with
what the fuck?
Yeah.
People are comfortable with the idea of like, well, I guess I just walk with a limp now. And maybe that's fine physically. But if you're walking with a limp in your relationships, you're fucked. You're going to lose everything that you ever cared about if you're doing that shit. And everybody is guilty of it to one degree or another, even people who have reached a level where they're aware of it now. Like, you still have to check yourself all the time and make sure that shit's not happening.
To that point, EMDR, I'm sure you're familiar with it. EMDR, one amazing way of processing through trauma in a very truncated, short amount of time, bilateral stimulation. And if you've ever been on a run or a bike ride or something where you're doing, tick, 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 tick. That's why when you're in the gym and you're doing repetition after repetition, and your brain starts solving your work problems or life problems.
It's the shower principle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, your prefrontal cortex is distracted and the rest of your brain is doing what it is good at doing, which is solving fucking problems.
But again, as I share that with people, they're like, fuck that, it requires a therapist, I'm not going to do it. I'm like, all right, come to the project. Come to the project, which means we're still going to expose and unearth the issue, and then I'm going to turn you on to Kevin. And so whether you do it now or you do it later, at least doing it later means they went through the project, they hear what Ray's gone through with his dad dying so early in life, and every instructor of the project, how ironic is that? It's not like I planned it that way, has had some traumatic event that's stalled them out in life, that caused a life ambush or 2 or 3, and they've done the self-work and the healing. And so to sit across men like Ray and Steve and Matt Schneider and Aaron Alejandriano, and for them to see like, wow, these tough dudes have gone through this shit and they've healed, I can too. And it's a cool thing. Going back to what you said about taking the easy way out, my wife likens it to, she drew a really beautiful word picture. She goes, imagine 2 jagged pieces of rocks that have these sharp little edges and corners. She goes, you put them in a burlap bag and you shake it up for years. And the only difference is most people want to jump out because the shaking up process hurts, right? It's like, well, I don't like the way you brush your teeth. Well, I don't like the way you cough. And I don't like the way you leave this toilet seat down. But you stay in that burlap bag long enough, those 2 pieces of rocks are going to be just beautifully smooth and work together. And here I am 17 years into a marriage, and Lord knows I've jumped out of that burlap bag so many times. One time I was like, all we have is $9,000 in the bank account. You fucking take all of that. I'm going to go to Hampton Inn and fucking, so I grab my toothbrush and I go to Hampton Inn. You know, within 2 hours, I'm back to normal. I'm like, I don't want to fucking sleep here. I want to go back to my own bedroom. But I told her I'm going to be at Hampton Inn, so fuck her, right? And so, like, who really got fucked? It was me, right? So I went back and jumped into the burlap sack, and here we are in a better place. And I did the self-work. And anyway, just the work matters.
It does.
It does. Also, unless you're willing to talk about it, like shit.
Well, that's the problem, though. Yeah. So we've done a very poor job. We've let the idea of toughness and masculinity get caught up in this fucking stupid political debate that's been going on the last 25 years, but it has no place there, right? The left can't be convinced that masculinity is not somehow intrinsically fucking negative. And the right seems to think, or conservatives or whomever, however you want to phrase that, they seem to think that toughness is like our masculinity is being like I'm this. No, you think it's tough to hide your problems because you're afraid of how somebody might feel about it? That's not fucking tough, dude. No. Come on.
Yeah.
That's just stupid. That's a very it's cognitive dissonance, really, because you're trying to apply an honorable characteristic to yourself for something that is not honorable. What you're doing is not honorable. But you want to make yourself feel that way, right?
Yeah.
By talking it up. It's fucking dumb.
It's a mask.
We delude ourselves quite a bit.
It's a mask. My only piece is like, shit, I work with my wife, so everybody's seen whatever the fuck I've gone through here. So it's like, there's good times and bad times, but that's marriage.
Like, yeah, but hasn't that made your marriage better?
Yes, in the
yes,
end.
it was painful.
But it's still, it's not like it's not embarrassing or everything else when you go through fights with your wife, or, again, you jump out of cars, whatever the fuck it is. You're just like, all right, great, God damn it, man. I don't want to argue, I don't want to fight or whatever, but I also don't want to get divorced. And it's, once you're in it, and it's long term. And there's something admirable about that as well, where you're like, all right, great. Fuck you. Yeah. We're going to stay in this, and like we're going to be fine the next day. And that's the thing. I know you're laughing your ass off because it's everybody who's been in it knows it.
Yes, and here's why. Because look, I'm not going to lie and say I didn't bring it up to Kevin, my therapist. Like, what? Right? Like, hey man, maybe I'm not supposed to be with her. And so Kevin always had this thing. He goes, let's follow that golden thread. In other words, let's unravel that golden thread. So anytime I'd say, like, well, this is what happened. He goes, let's unravel that. So he goes, okay, so you divorced your wife. I go, yeah. I go, but it's going to be amicable, and we're going to be best friends, and blah, 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 and Andrew and Chloe are going to be great, and because we're going to, he goes, okay, but then are you going to just stay celibate? Nope. Going to get married at some point? Yep. Okay, so she's going to have issues with your behavior, and you're going to have issues with the way she brushes her teeth and the way you fart and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
Like, fuck. Yeah, you're right.
Just start all over.
Jump into another burlap bag.
Yeah.
So I might as well stay in the one I'm in because we're halfway there. We're halfway there to being 2 shiny, smooth pieces of stone.
Especially with you. I mean, you're like close to acquisition. You got to ride that out.
Yeah.
You know, take that money and
right.
Right off into the sunset, my man.
Yeah,
Now's the point in the show where we get to the Drinkin' Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helps you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the Week to?
Oh, man, I'm so glad you asked. His name is Jim Franco. He's 81 years old. He was my first mentor, and I didn't even know that he was mentoring me. He's my rich dad. So my dad is my poor dad, and I love him to pieces for risking his life. But Jim Franco was my first personal training client in my 20s when I was a shitbag of a human. Worked at LA Fitness and also worked at a gay club as a bouncer because I enjoyed getting in fights.
Yeah. Fucking gay dudes can fight, by the way.
Not only that, skinheads come and wait in the parking lot to gay bash, and that's where the real fights begin.
God, that seems like a lot of work.
It is.
For what?
It is.
Yeah. But Jim Franco, man, he would stay behind. Like he was, hey kid, you got any clients after me? I'm like, no, Jim, I don't. He would stay behind and he would mentor me. And he gave me when I didn't have the confidence to think like an entrepreneur, he gave me that. When I didn't have, I saw him drive up.
Not in a Corvette, probably, right?
No.
Yeah.
He drove a classic Mercedes one day to work out. I don't even know what it was, but it was just old school classic Mercedes. And then 2 days later, because it was a Monday, Wednesday, he shows up in like a Cadillac Escalade. I'm like, Jim, you have 2 cars. This is in my 20s. He's like, you can have several. I'm like, you can? Right? Because I drove a 74 Toyota pickup back then. And, but anyway, Jim Franco, just legend of a human, and he mentored me in ways that I wish I can go back and re-experience it with these eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would have taken it in more.
That's awesome, man. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure having you tonight. We're recording this a couple of days in advance. Where can everybody find you personally and reach out to you personally if they're going through shit and everything else?
Sure. So I answer all my DMs, and so it's going to be on Instagram. I'm just fascinated with that platform. It really brings humanity closer together, and it's not as bad.
You have like 1 million fucking followers.
600,000, not quite 1 million.
Oh,
but
it's way more than Dan and I.
But Instagram at Bedros Keuilian. Thanks for that.
Awesome. Awesome. Man, thanks for being here. I know we've kind of juggled schedules and everything else, and it's crazy, but you see all the craziness here.
Dude, I appreciate your guys' flexibility. Seriously, I'm super grateful for this.
Oh, not at all, man. Not at all. Well, look, Dan and I record almost all day. Nobody realizes that. Both of us are on probably 3 or 4 shows
now,
today.
one of my buddies was in town this week, and he and I did a very serious show over on that set. And he was like, I walked over and started setting my shit up. He's like, oh, you guys doing it again? He goes, I'm like, yeah. He's like, man, I feel like I need a fucking emotional break right now. I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah, you probably do. Luckily for me.
Yeah, luckily for me, here's where it is. And shout out to Papa G and Delco Dan as well for staying late tonight. We love you guys.
Delco's not wearing that jersey.
It's over.
Oh, is it over?
Yeah,
Congratulations.
It's over. Congratulations. We're proud of you. We're proud of you.
On to the next one.
On to the next one. I said, look, we'll get you guys UFC tickets if you want to go to the next one. Amanda Nunes got COVID, so she's out.
Oh, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
God damn it.
Crazy,
man.
right?
That's that whole card, right?
Pretty much. I looked at him and he goes, dude, I don't give a fuck about the tickets anymore. So.
Nah, we'll just go to Vegas for $266.
Exactly. We'll go for $266. You've been there. You can win money again. Congratulations. For D'Anthony Hollaway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros podcast. Good night, everyone.